Awesome. And welcome to another episode of How to Make It in Toronto. I'm super excited for today's episode as we're talking with an AI leader, an author. Um, super excited to get into this conversation. We'll be sitting down with Suriel Arellano, who is an AI expert, author, and executive coach with over 20 years of experience helping leaders and organizations navigate the complexity of digital transformation. Suriel has held key roles at leading tech companies like IBM and HP and brings an authentic, insightful approach. Welcome to the show, Suriel.
Thank you so much, Carl. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to start with the first question I ask everybody, which is, how do you define success?
Absolutely. For me, success is that you're doing something that you're passionate about and you just love doing it, right? For me, it's like if you get to a point where you're doing what you love to do, regardless if like, of course, some people say it's like, well, as long as you get paid.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes even without getting paid, you just love doing it. For me, it's just success. If you're happy doing it, you reach that goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I totally agree. It's like as long as you're doing something you're passionate about, and hopefully that monetary situation follows, then good for you. So let's start off with your career path to this point. I know that you started off as an engineer and now you're more on the business side and coaching CEOs, leading a team. How did you make that switch? And could you talk a little bit about how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started even going to college for an engineering degree. So my first job was actually in a digital equipment corporation. A lot of people don't even know what it's late 90s. A lot of people probably don't even know what that company is. But I started actually on PC support. I was just the in the front lines, and just from there I moved up to like engineering, field engineering, and all that stuff. What was curious about that is that we were actually in the engineering group. We were tasked to do a presentation about one of the solutions. And of course, I was kind of like the voluntold to share this, and mostly with executives and kind of in what I would call in plain English, to kind of share that, right? And I remember that I loved it, and I started to kind of share that solution. So it kind of came natural for me to explore and educate executives or managers into our solutions. And I remember that time a great person that is still a great friend, director of marketing, said, "Is like, hey, why don't you come over and you start as a sales engineer to help us with our solution?" And I made the change, and for me, it kind of completely even made me change my career from engineering to a bachelor's of science in leadership and management, which totally was focused on people. So for me, it was that jump of actually educating people and make it about people was really fascinating. I still consider myself a geek. Although I the last time I coded something was probably late 90s when I was going to college. But I understand it, but now it's about people.
That's great. So, I mean, when making that transition, and certainly in learning how to communicate well, what do you think was some of the key things or the key traits that you have and utilize to be successful in terms of communicating to leaders or just even to a customer and breaking complex things down into small things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I have something for teaching. Like even sometimes my kids say, is like when they ask me something and I start dissecting and explaining, is like, oh, that okay, it's like I'm adding to, but I there's something about, like, I just love explaining and dissecting things, and I guess that's the engineering part of me that I like to explore and kind of dissect things and sharing them. but also explaining them, and different from other peers that, of course, they're engineers. They're a little bit of like social shy, if you may.
Yeah.
I'm the total opposite. Like, I love, explaining and talking and being in front of people. So I think that that's what made it a little bit easier for me to
Mhm.
transition, because from just being in behind the scenes and just in the engineering part,
Mhm. Yeah.
now being in front of people and educating and explaining, like I said, in kind of in a very plain English, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
how
Exactly.
technology works. So
Yeah.
it kind of helped that transition a lot.
Yeah. Do you use metaphors? Because I find that I use that a lot. When you're trying to explain something very
Yes.
technical and you break it down for someone. So is that something that you utilize sometimes?
Oh, a lot. I was talking to I was coaching a client yesterday, actually, and we were talking about the envisioning the bridge, and what your goals are is on the other side of the bridge. So you need to build that bridge. I love all that,
Yeah.
and it comes naturally, and it kind of helps
Mhm.
uh, to the other people, right, to
Yeah.
understand it and see it in a way that it helps them.
100%. And so how did that transition happen? Obviously, you started working on the business side and then you got into coaching. How did you get into that? Where did you get started and what led you to get into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened is during my time, and of course being on leadership and management, which is mostly about the people, and w- throughout my career, I had the privilege to lead people at a either management level or executive level, or even to be able to mentor some other people.
Mhm.
And although throughout my 25 years of experience in technology and in my career, there's always like in a consultant level,
Mhm.
I've always been part of like trying to solve a lot of things, right, for
Mhm.
clients or peers. But then some people start saying like, hey, well, do you coach? Do you
Yeah.
kind of, you know and for me, one thing actually was different from move and mindset between consulting, which is very solution oriented,
Mhm.
consulting, to coaching, which is mostly to be able to provide just ask the right questions so
Mhm.
the person will solve the problems by themselves, right? So there's totally opposite consulting and coaching.
Mhm.
And for me, at the beginning, it was like, oh, well, maybe, coaching might not be for me. But
Mhm.
the more I started coaching people, and of course, I am certified executive coach now. But I think that the part of helping people realize
Mhm.
that they have the answers,
Mhm.
but all in themselves, is
Mhm.
fascinating,
Yeah.
because is like, as a consultant, I could tell you the things that you do to do,
Mhm.
but if I come up with the solutions, it might be hard for you to actually act on them, because
Mhm.
there's no really internal force for you to do it, right? But
Yeah.
with coaching is different, because what I'm doing is helping you to tap that your own solutions. And
Mhm.
when you come with your own solutions, you're actually are activating that will to do it themselves, by yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it is fascinating. And the part for me is, and although sometimes I do, I don't know if you heard about this term, but it's kind of like coach salting, which is a little bit of a hybrid of
Yeah.
coaching and consulting.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the needs of the people I'm working with. Is like, well,
Mhm.
okay, let's do a hybrid. But yeah, no, I think that again, like I said, I love all of that.
Yeah. I mean, so you get to work with a lot of high performing people, and people who are successful. What do you think, or if you could share, what's one of the main things that high performers going to come to you for coaching for, and how you're helping them, obviously figure it out for themselves or find that solution to help them keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a different different type of coaching, right? I have, for example, startup CEOs that they're great, they're intelligent. The products that they brought up is because of their highly intelligent, but they're struggling with leadership. Like the leadership skills are not there, and of course because they're highly intelligent at what they do. So for me, in that sense, is to be able to help them have some leadership traits and helping them and develop this leadership path is very important. So that is part of my goals is to be able to give them the tools and the whatever they need to be able to have leadership skills that can bring not only the high intelligence in them, but also that be able to influence and lead their companies.
Mhm.
On the other side, I have C-level executives that they're great at leadership.
Yeah.
But something that is unique about leaders and executives is that being at the top is very lonely. Is like, who do you vent with? It's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you definitely don't want to. And of course, I deal with management level, director level, but C level is like, who do you vent, or who do you
Yeah.
talk to that you can actually tell. There's a lot of course, without but exposing any of my clients, but there's sometimes we forget that leaderships and C-level executives are humans,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard sometimes to be able to for them to express themselves, and they're very active people, very high stress people.
Yeah.
So also be able to kind of for them to I wouldn't call it vent, but for them
Mm.
to also to get out of that some of that and
Yeah.
have a conversation of someone that can understand it, because I'm I'm an executive myself, right? But I
Mhm.
have the opportunity to talk to peers and things like that. So that those are the two elements that I see in
Yeah.
different people.
That's awesome. And great answer. So let me ask you, what do you think, would be like if you're an up and coming wannabe executive or high performer and looking to get into leadership, what do you think is the most important skill to master, especially if you think now in the digital age that we're in? So sometimes you don't get the chance to be with a person in person, right? So what
Right.
do you think are important skills to have or to learn or to master to be able to be a successful leader?
Yeah,
Mm,
that's a great question, because I get this question a lot. Is it are leaders born, or
mm,
are leaders made? Right? And I always say is like, leaders are made.
mm,
It's there's nothing like, I know there's people, and we can get in a whole debate is like, well, there are natural leaders, right? Is like, oh, you have the traits of a leader. But if
mhm,
you think about it, is like, what's actual a leader? And for me, is someone that is able to influence.
mm,
Actually, I started writing a book years ago, which I haven't finished, by the way, but is the power of influence. And
mm,
as leader, one of the traits, there are so many emotional intelligence and traits that you can have. But as a leader, I think the most important one is the power of influence,
mm,
right? And of course, you can be a good influence or a bad influence, but uh, something that I always say is you cannot lead someone to a place where you've never been. And what I mean by that is like, before being a leader, you probably need to be a good follower,
yeah,
because that's going to take you to good leadership. And I know this is not a leadership segment, but we
yeah,
can go into details. But
mhm,
one of the things that I say is like, is now talking about influence and be able to influence people. Of course, there are some other traits that are good for leaders to be. And we can go into all the differences between what's a leader, what's a manager. But
yeah, go ahead.
but talking about, just let me put like kind of put away the management side,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
not all great leaders are good managers, and not great managers are good leaders.
Yeah.
Mostly because managers are focused on the task ahead,
Mm-hmm.
where leaders are more visionaries. It's like they know where they need to go, and they're going to influence everybody to take them there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about if they're good leaders or bad leaders, but going back to that influence is, I think they are important traits
Mm.
that I usually coach my coachees, my clients, my leaders about, which are the fundamentals of leadership in terms of the traits of empathy,
Mm.
right? Being able to have that empathy for the people that they're leading, right, is for me is crucial in terms of being able to have that empathy.
Mm.
Also, is of course is leadership is to recognize a lot of times when you are doing the right things,
Yeah.
when you're not doing the right things, and how to correct that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and again is kind of going back into the leadership and trades components.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of these are natural for some people,
Mm.
and for some other people, learning these traits are just about a practice, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you tell me and kind of like, well, what would not a good leader be?
Mm.
I would say the opposite of influencing, right? Is if you are not a people's person,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say is like you probably wouldn't be a good leader. And I'm not qualifying a leader, but is a leader is a people person. Why? Because is you are leading, influencing people towards the goal, towards the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's kind of like a quick
Yeah.
definition of what I share with my clients.
Yeah, no, I love that. That was really great, and great to understand it from that perspective of certainly distinguishing between a manager and a leader as well, right? And how to get around that. And I think it's totally true that you need to at least have walked the walk to be able to talk the talk and tell someone to go over there and accomplish something that you don't really know. I find that working in a startup and sometimes building a new project, and you'd have people say, well, I've had a CEO say, hey, just go over there and do that. And you'd come back and say, well, it's not as easy as it looks, or it's not a 1, 2, 3 play. There's a lot of different people involved and aspects involved. And if you don't understand that, sometimes that leader can expect it to be, a one and done, right? So I
Right.
definitely get what you're saying. So let me ask you, as a CEO, you definitely faced some obstacles. Could you share, one major obstacle that you faced and how, you were able to overcome that?
Yeah. One of the things that I usually, there are so many, but if I can choose one,
Mm.
is when people are resistant to your vision. And some of the stuff that happens is there's no clarity of your vision, or they're not really bought into your vision.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's super crucial, right? Because
Mm.
sometimes we're not able to take in some years ago when we started also is I had a vision, but I didn't know how to kind of bring my team
Yeah.
into that vision. So it took
Yeah.
a lot of maturity on my end to
Mm.
be able to learn how to interpret that vision in a way. And mind you, with my clients, I do it every day.
Mm.
But it's different when you're doing with your own team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for some reason is like so somebody said is like, well, a doctor sometimes is not a good doctor for themselves, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're a great doctor for everybody, but you sometimes you don't even take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge all by itself, because
Mm.
is being able to have the buy-in from your team. And of
Mm.
course we do provide change management for our teams,
Mm.
for our clients and everything. So be able to do that ourselves
Mhm.
was kind of a challenge, because it was when you don't have that alignment or
Yeah.
buying in the vision, it takes a toll on, as a leader, it takes a toll as a CEO, it takes definitely a toll on you, because it's like, why are things not happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things, of course, when I was starting, is like, you wear many hats.
Yeah.
So the transition of wearing many hats to be able to delegate
Yeah.
that to people, mind you, the transition of that is, and going back to the resistance, is that, well, I'm going to end up doing it myself, because,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but that goes into like trusting your own vision, be able to
Mhm.
transfer that into your team, but also be able to take the time to prepare your team, and trust your team, because
Yeah.
that's the other thing, is when you end up doing it yourself, is because you're not trusting in your team that what you're telling them, they're going to do it.
Mhm.
They're all going to make mistakes. There are going to be mistakes, and we, even now, years after, with even with my team today, is like, yeah, we'll make mistakes, but is going back again into that mentorship, right? That leadership is you have to take the time. If you end up doing it yourself, is
Mhm.
again, is you really need to pay attention to what's happening. You need to trust in your team that they're going to do it, and of course, from there, you'll see like what changes you need to do, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's great. I think it's so true. Trust is a big thing, certainly as a leader. But can you tell us about a time where you've failed and what you've learned about that lesson? You know, whether it's managing a team or just even just in business. Right?
yeah. The, I'm just going to be honest. I
Mm.
fail every day. I but I guess every day I learn something new, and what I say by that, I mean, don't take me wrong, is not a failure. It, for me, is learning. Now, sometimes the price of that learning
Mhm.
is, it might be different, right? Mostly at the beginning, I remember that I was spending a lot of money into different strategies, into bringing the right people, or investing in the right things for sales and marketing. So it was costly,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I was learning on the go. So, and I could probably say one thing, right? I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing and sales,
Yeah.
and it was a costly learning.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
you tell me, is like, well, probably I would have done it differently. I
Mhm.
completely agree.
Mhm.
But what I learned was valuable. It
Yeah.
was probably, I could have, yes, I know I probably could have short putted by bringing a consultant at the time, or the
Yeah.
right people, but um, I guess you don't know until you really messed it up,
Yeah.
right? And for me, in the learning from that, is that, well, I now know the decisions that I need to make based of those experiences, right?
Yeah.
They hurt you, right? They actually
Yeah.
hurt you so much that it says like, well, I did spend it was a really expensive class.
Yeah, I like that. But then you say, as they say, experience is the greatest teacher, right? Yeah,
Yes,
you,
absolutely.
you went through it. So let's jump into some of the work you're doing now. So I know you're an AI expert, and so how are you helping leaders and organizations with AI adoption and transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout the years, and
Mm.
20, 25 years in the high tech industry, and one of the things that we need to understand is that AI is nothing new. I mean, I know after kind of the boom of TikTok and ChatGPT, is like, everybody's talking about AI as like this mainstream, right? But
Yeah,
first of all, the AI was coined in the 1960s, so it's
yeah,
like, it's nothing new. But and I remember when I was working in IBM, we had Watson, and he was around the
I remember that.
2010.
Yeah,
Yeah, in my book, Leading in the Age of AI, I a little talk about that. But one of the things that I like to share about AI is that if we understand AI as a tool, I know there are a lot of misconceptions about what AI is, and so my work in the digital transformation, which AI is kind of like just one component of it, is I talk about is uh, I try to kind of bring or educate leaders into what AI is, and of course what AI is not, right? Because I get to talk to a lot of executives, mostly with the part of like they are those CEOs or owners that want to implement AI. One is because is the buzzword out there,
Yeah.
and other is because it's like everybody's doing it, so I think I need to do it. And unfortunately, when you start with technology, when you start with AI, without having really the education of how this affect your people, how this affect your process, then it might be challenging, right? Because then in my first book, the Golden Triangle, I talk about the PPT, right? The people, process, technology. So when you start with technology, when you try to recreate the processes based on that technology that you acquire, and people are an afterthought,
Yeah.
that's when everything's gonna come down, right? Because
Yeah.
people it's really resistant to that change and kind of
Yeah.
quitting and all that. So, but when you actually start with the people component in mind, the people element is that looking at their needs, looking at what the processes are, and then from there look at the technology aspect, then that's different, right? Because
Yeah.
you're starting with the buying of the people that are going to be using the software, and you capitalize on their skill sets.
Yeah.
So for me, this is exactly what I try to educate through my book and through different consultings and my team. Basically, we start with that. We start with the people component and go through
How
that.
it's going to improve. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically what I
Yeah.
try to educate on that aspect.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love how you're covering it, and I'd love to understand, especially since we're talking about leadership and the digital age. So, like, what do you think leadership looks like in the digital age, and how must leaders evolve to manage their team in this new space, especially with the component of AI? We all know that it's taking over doing a lot of the admin duties or speeding things
Yeah.
up. So, what advice do you have for leaders and how to manage their teams and people, as you're mentioning, in AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things is without promoting our services, we do have something called the DX Accelerator, which is one of the services that we provide is for those people. We usually have, like I said, clients in different journeys, right? We have the reactionary clients with that. They started with technology, they're recreating the processes, and then now HR or leadership and learning and development are training the people. So we do work with them, but for those that don't know where to start on digital transformation and mostly bringing AI, one of the things that we start with is doing an AI readiness assessment. And basically, what that does is we work with leaders, mostly C-level, mid-level, to say is like, well, let me understand where you are at the AI readiness,
Yeah.
right? And something that we for about a couple of years that we started this program, something that has been awesome to see is how when we start the assessment, we have a score which is from 0 to 5. For those that are over the three threshold, then they're ready for some type of AI implementation. I would say 90% of the people that we work with, they're below that 3 threshold. And the
Yeah.
reason is because, and it's completely anonymous. We provide these assessment
Mhm.
completely anonymous. But we get from them is like, what are the most important things when you, or at least understanding of people.
Mhm.
And most of the things that I hear or that we get is fear of being replaced, fear of losing control,
Yeah.
and mostly that we grew up
Yeah.
watching Terminator, so we think that machines are
Exactly.
taking over the world.
Yeah.
So my and again, the reason I bring this up just to answer the question is because leaders, going back to that, depending on where you are, if you are afraid of bringing AI, or
Yeah.
if you're overexcited about bringing AI, I always say is like start with your people component.
Yeah.
Remember, we talk about the empathy, right? The
Yeah.
empathy as
Exactly.
that. It's something that I say in my book is technology needs to empower humanity and not replace it. So it is coming back to the empathy and making sure that as a leader, uh, first of all, as a leader, you are responsible to make sure that when you're implementing AI or incorporating AI in your organization,
Mhm.
making sure that it's you're talking about the empathy, you're talking
Yeah.
about the ethics, uh, even the bias. There are a lot of talking about all these. I'm not gonna get into the politics, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now the scrutinize of DI is like,
Yeah.
how do you make sure that these technologies that you bring are
Yeah.
not affecting replacing your people? So
Yeah.
number one is a recommendation. It is, of course, I'm happy for them to use our AI readiness assessment. But number one
Yeah.
would be is before implementing something with AI
Mhm.
is look at your people component, and and it's not about buying in
Mm.
anymore. It's about alignment
Yeah.
on what everybody thinks. Because after the report and after we have worked with them,
Mhm.
some of them go up to like four,
Yeah.
five. We haven't seen anybody with five,
Yeah.
but that tells you how important it is to align the people. Mostly, if you have out of your leadership team
Mhm.
two or three people that are not aligned with an AI
Yeah.
a strategy, that's going to bring down a lot of what we're saying is the resistance
Yeah.
in the people. So that is for me the number one is like
Yeah.
empathy, and
Yeah.
of course is make sure that you are aligned with your immediate team, your
Yeah.
leadership team. If you're a huge corporation, that would be your board or
Yeah.
your C levels, or even if you're a small company, right? It's
Yeah.
like with your
Exactly.
direct reports.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's a great thing to keep in mind, certainly as a business. And where would people be able to find your assessment if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go, my website is surielarellano.com, and under resources, and of course my consulting, my consulting firm, we have what it is tech4digital.com.
Mhm.
Um, that's TEC, the number four,
Mhm.
a digital.com/digital transformation.
Mhm.
And at the bottom, we have like a banner. It's like DX Accelerator.
Okay.
So that will explain the whole program. That will explain like the first step is that assessment.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's practically where they can go and learn more.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Everybody go check that out. And so my next question will be, how do you think AI will affect organization success and employee success, in the next coming years?
Yeah. The way I see it, and I know that there's and even a lot of peers and that talk about AI.
Mhm.
Uh, some of them I hear that says like, well, people are not being replaced by AI, but people don't know AI and different things like that.
Mhm.
The short answer for me is that just as every tool,
Mhm.
AI is a tool, right? And of
Yeah.
course, it is a powerful tool, but just as money or as I don't want to get into the weaponry or all that stuff, but
Yeah.
is it's just a tool, right? And
Mhm,
we'll have a responsibility on how far we take that
mhm,
tool, right? But I think it is important for us to be educated
mhm,
in the tool. I was at the end of last year, I was in a panel and we were talking about the I don't want to get too much into details, but it's like, well,
mhm,
education, right? And how tools like ChatGPT can affect education for people cheating and things like that. And I
yeah,
always say is like, if you have your people informed and well
yeah,
educated to what the tool is, in
mhm,
this case AI, that will put more control of the people
yeah,
towards that tool.
mhm,
Because right now is when you have misinformation or disinformation about a particular technology,
mhm,
that tends to go more into leaving people more afraid, right?
mhm,
And that's the part where it kind of becomes is like, well, I'm not going to use it. I mean, it's I remember 2 years ago when I published my book Leader in the Age of AI,
yeah,
I used to have comments on my social media that says like, oh, you work for the Antichrist.
yeah,
No, I don't.
yeah,
But and now to be empathetic, right, is like
mhm,
there's a lot of people that have, depending on how you see the future, if you, a dystopian and utopian future,
mm,
that's how you would perceive
perceive it.
the AI.
Mhm,
So I think that for us is one, knowing what AI is and what AI
mhm,
is not. Then, as a leader, of course, knowing your responsibility to make sure that
mhm,
AI doesn't get out of, I always say is like, if you have a dog, make sure you put him on a leash,
yeah,
type of stuff. But also, it's like there are so many useful things
mm,
for AI to improve, and like I said, to empower humanity, right?
yeah, yeah,
Those are the things that we need to harness and we need to be able to embrace in order to for a better future.
mhm,
So by having people educated on that,
mhm,
I think is the most powerful thing, because
yeah,
then you are exploring a great technology for different uses, right? For
yeah.
positive uses. So yeah, hopefully that answers. I know it's kind of like a very
No,
open-ended
that's a
answer,
great
but
answer. No, it's great. I think again, it's like being able to see it as a tool that can truly, help you propel you forward in so many different ways, and taking the time to learn how to use it so that it can work the best for you, right? And it's
absolutely.
true. It's true. I see a lot of people who are afraid of it, or don't understand, or immediately see it as it's going to take over this, or it's going to take from me in
Hmm.
this way. But it's something I feel like you should be embracing, learning from, and learning how to use it for yourself, and be able to take you to that.
Yeah, there's an example that I always like to bring, mostly when we're meeting with these people that have like under three the threshold.
Hmm.
That some of their questions are like, well, they feel like AI is this magical thing,
Yeah.
supernatural thing that is going to be doing something. And I always say is like, well, have you ever, in for example, before Google Maps, so before your Apple Map in your iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go from A to B, right? How would you go to a destination? And of course, you will use the map, right? You
Yeah.
you will. I still remember those days when we used to print out MapQuest.
MapQuest.
I'm dating myself here right now, but or
Yeah.
use those foldable maps that you used to
Yeah.
get at the gas station.
Yeah.
But I said it's like, now the first thing that you do is put the address in MapQuest,
Mm-hmm.
and if you've used the traffic feature of the map,
Yeah.
which is super useful,
Yeah.
you're probably saying is like, well, that has improved my life because now I know at what time I need to get out of,
Yeah.
my house.
Yeah.
And some people call it the algorithm, but
Hmm.
it's some type of AI. So it is, we've been using AI for so many years
Yeah.
without realizing it. So when I say that, is like, oh, that's true. So
Hmm.
you start changing your mindset from being this mystical, supernatural magic thing
Yeah.
to an actual tangible tool that is like, oh, you're right. So AI is not too bad,
Mm.
you
I would
know.
say, yeah.
So, or if you watch Netflix, and Netflix and chill, it's like, well, you
Yeah.
have after you watch the movie, you have some recommendations to what to
Yeah.
watch next. It's
Yeah.
like, again, or Amazon. You've been
Yeah.
buying in Amazon, and then you have this like, because you purchased this, then you can purchase. It's like,
Yeah.
again, is knowing exactly is when we, and going back to my perspective of like, if we are educated about that technology, we can harness, we can control that.
Yeah.
And of course, one thing, of course, we as people, we can make sure that we keep our leaders accountable, and
Hmm.
not in a bad way, accountability as in a bad way, but as in an ownership, right? Is to make sure that all these technologies are able to be used for good and not for bad. I
Hmm.
think our perspective is going to change,
Yeah.
because then we have so many. Going back to your question, is like, how can we harness this to make decisions? Well, with leaders, and we actually have a pilot with a DX a simulator, which is
Mhm.
basically is how can digital transformation help you and your organization by simulating things
Mhm.
instead of just implementing things, but simulating things. And it's based on using AI. It's
Yeah.
actually helping our leaders to make not to make decisions,
Yeah.
but to make better and informed
Informed
decisions
decisions. Yeah.
to that. So yeah, I mean, it's, you can tell my passion about it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm an AI guy too, so I definitely love it. So let's get into this. I want to talk about obviously your book, but I wanted to also get to how you got there, because you're an engineer, you're a CEO, and then now you're an author as well. So what inspired you to get into writing, and inspired you to write I think it was the Golden Age? Was it your first book?
Well, the Golden Triangle was the
Golden
first
Triangle,
book,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah. And then leading in the age of AI, I'm
Mm.
actually working right now towards my third book, which is Culture Shift, which is kind of like the series
Okay.
of the whole digital transformation. Well, first of all, I can tell you is like, I've been wanting to write a book since probably 10 years ago,
Mm.
and the first manuscript that I haven't finished,
Mm.
it's the power of influence, and that was one of the major when I shift a little bit more into leadership training and coaching.
Mm.
One of my goals with the power of influence was to be able to uh, kind of tell my stories. And
Yeah.
in this case, I haven't finished it yet, but I really want to publish, because when my mom was alive, which for me was one of inspirational leaders,
Mm.
it was basically the influence, right?
Yeah.
So I've always had in mind, but I've always been scared of writing, like, because
Mm.
I can tell you, I'm an engineer,
Yeah.
I'm a coach, but
Yeah.
I'm not a good writer.
Yeah.
So I think for me, and of course, like 4 years ago, I remember my wife was telling me, because the accolades I have, uh, education from AI leadership at MIT and business management at Harvard, and my degree, and I'm an ICF certified
Yeah.
coach, is like a ton of things. But then
Yeah.
she was telling me, is like, you have so much in your brain. What are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
I was like, you're right. Like, what would be the best way for me to kind of start sharing that, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I said, is like, well, I'm just gonna start with one,
Mm.
which it was the Golden Triangle, the pinnacle for digital transformation. So it's basically using one of the I'm not gonna say oldest, but the PPT framework is pretty old, I would say,
Mhm.
based on digital years.
Mhm.
But it's super important because it's so essential for today's framework.
Mhm.
So I said, well, I'm just gonna write it. I'm gonna start writing it, and of course, the credit is on the mine and what I put down. But
Yeah.
of course, I have proof writers, and
Yeah.
I have a team that helped me into kind of putting all that in words.
Yeah.
I would say being an author, it really requires a lot of time. And I have a great team of editors and things like that, that, people that have helped me
Yeah.
in publishing these books. But I would say is once I started, like that was the first book.
Yeah.
While I was going through AA leadership in MIT, with all these ideas, was like, oh, I'm gonna publish that, which it was right before ChatGPT was a boom.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
I'm working right now with the second edition of that book, now
Yeah.
bringing all the patent pending technologies that we built and all that. So it's going to be a lot more practical per se.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was like, well, now I'm thinking of the manuscript that I started years ago.
Yeah.
But also, it was funny because I was invited to speak at a it's so funny at a DEI conference.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what am I gonna talk about? Like,
Yeah.
all I talk about is digital transformation.
Yeah.
But while preparing about that, I'm like, the best thing for me to talk about is how culture is so important for digital transformation. Is like it goes back to when the IT or when digital transformations start with technology. Guess
Mhm.
who are the ones that get stuck with all the challenges of change
Yeah.
management and training people?
Mhm.
HR
Yeah.
and all the people that have to train that,
Yeah.
right? So I said the importance of culture, and that's why the book, it's called Culture Shift, is
Mhm.
that we have to make sure also that a culture is shifted towards a innovation, a culture of innovation. Now talking about with executives, making sure that you know the culture is prepared
Yeah.
for us to have that, bring this type of technologies
Mhm.
with the people component in mind. So now after that, I remember that I was coming from last year. I was coming from a conference in Dubai actually,
Yeah.
and it was a 16-hour flight. And I was like, gosh, what do I do? Like and then I started like I could show you my notes, my
Yeah.
notes app.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, I would like to write a book about this. And now I would like to write a book. I got a kind of like 20 ideas for a manuscript
Yeah.
that are books that I don't even know if I will have the time to do, but I would recommend for anybody now with the ability that we have for self-publish with Amazon, and my books are in Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. I
Mhm.
was like, is the best way for someone at the executive level, even for someone at whatever level,
Yeah.
just put. And now with, I mean, I haven't tried it, but I know probably my writers have used some type of chat GPT, but
Yeah.
it is amazing how you can just get what's on your mind
Mhm.
and get it to a place that you can transfer that knowledge
Yeah.
in a book. And I think that I will always recommend is like, if for those that are hesitating,
Mhm.
just go. They don't need to be perfect, and that's something that, of course, and if later you want to either hire a ghost writer team or a writer team, or do it with chat gpt,
Yeah.
I think the most important part is the value that people have.
Mhm.
Like one day my wife said is like, what are you going to do with all that information?
Mm.
Is just start with those ideas.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I don't really expect that my books are going to be like the New York bestsellers,
Mm.
but are definitely for my business, and for me are kind of like a business card, or a way to introduce myself to an audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would recommend it to anybody.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And definitely an idea that I'll think about one day is taking the chance to write. I would ask, or just one thing in terms of, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, but what can readers either expect to learn from reading in the age of AI, or what would you want them to, one takeaway you'd want them to walk away with after reading your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the first edition, the actual edition that is out right now in Amazon, my idea was basically while I was going attending MIT and I was doing AI leadership and all that. My idea was to bring awareness of
Mhm.
AI and kind of it challenges those myths of what AI is and what AI is not. So it was mostly to educate leaders on how to lead in an age of, we are so saturated about what AI is, what
Yeah.
AI is not. Now, again, like a little bit of spoilers with this version 2, in I keep educating leaders. That's my goal. That's my ultimate goal. But
Mhm.
one of the things that I want to make with the second edition is I'll make it a little bit more evergreen. And what happened with the first version that I recommended 100%, because that's kind of the introduction for someone that is on the fence of or don't know what AI is, or they know what AI is, but they need a kind of guidance on what to do and how to lead your organization. By
Mhm.
the way, is non-technical.
Mhm.
It's for someone, for an executive, for a leader, or
Mhm.
a regular person that just want to understand what AI is and
Yeah.
AI is not. But definitely the idea of this book, independent on which version you wanna, what revision you wanna say, is the sense of knowing, and like you said, is educating yourself about what AI is,
Mhm.
what AI is not, because I make emphasis on that because a lot of people have a misconception what AI is, and be able to then use that. There's a whole chapter about the emotional intelligence component that
Mhm.
AI will never replace. And
Yeah.
that's mostly to talking to my leaders and the leaders and what I call digital leaders,
Yeah.
right? That are leading in this times where it's so much saturated about and even peer pressure of using AI,
Yeah.
is like, what are the things that, as a leader, with the traits that we need to embrace to be able to lead our company in a way that, and that's where the quote comes from, is like, technology needs to empower humanity
Yeah.
and not replace it.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, definitely, there's the fear of replacement.
Mhm.
Everybody has that fear,
Yeah.
but as leaders, we're responsible to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
Now, will it happen? I hope in my lifetime that might not, but
Mhm.
that's why we need to educate the leaders of today
Yeah.
so this doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I love that quote too. I really love that quote to empower people. Okay, so tell me, with everything that you've accomplished, all your different fields that you've worked in, and this could be on a day-to-day or in your career, what are some of the best resources that have helped you be successful or help you today be successful?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of podcasts that
Mhm.
I listen to, and there are some that are leadership podcasts. I'm not going to promote them here, but
No, that's fine.
uh, uh,
It's,
I would definitely. I mean, there's one specifically that helped me a lot
Mhm.
in the way I work and the
Mhm.
way, again, like I said, I'm very bucketized type of person, engineer,
Yeah.
but one that Brian Moran, I will totally say that there's a 12-week
Yeah.
year. It's one of for me that have influenced me to be more on my work and be
Mhm.
able to make goals and to be able to actually take advantage of my time in a
Mhm.
very bucketize or
Yeah.
strategic use of my time.
Mhm.
So I would, yeah, podcast. There's an app that I actually, I usually joke is like I read about 10 books a week.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's not true,
Yeah.
by the way. But the reason I'm able to do it is because there's an app, and again, I'm not promoting. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it.
Yeah.
It's called Blinkist,
Linguist.
and
Okay.
it's a 10-minute book summary,
Okay.
and that helps me
Mm.
to basically, and of course, all the books that I get are either about leadership, either about
Mm.
new technologies, or there are very good authors that also I follow for AI and digital transformation that
Mhm.
I like to quote and kind of share with my clients.
Yeah.
Uh, but my I would say more than what have inspired me is
Mm.
mostly the process that I take
Mm.
uh, on consuming this content. So what I do is usually I go in on Blink List.
Mhm.
Blink List. What I do is I put some of the books that I want to read, and sometimes in my commute between meetings and all that, I just put them. It's a 10-minute summary of the book.
Mm.
That's why I say it's like, oh, I've read so many. Well,
Yeah.
not really, but I have the summary.
Yeah.
And then after that, what I do is for those that I liked, I just go on Audible and
Mhm.
then I download them from there. And then
Yeah.
I take some time for me to kind of like digest and consume. If I like that or there are some action items, uh, what I do, I have some books. Actually, you can see some of the books that I
Yeah.
have in the back. Then I buy them
Mm.
and then I start highlighting what
Okay.
what
Yeah.
I like. So
Yeah.
it's again, it's a process that it has helped me,
Mhm.
and I'm not I and probably this is so bad to say, but I'm not a end-to-end book reader. That's
Mm.
why for me these apps are amazing
Yeah.
because I get from the books what I need, and
Mhm.
I'm able to consume more.
Yeah.
The and it's so bad because I know some people buy my book and hopefully they read it from end to end,
Yeah. Yeah.
but but
No,
uh but it
yeah.
works for me.
Yeah. No, I get it. I do the same. It depends on the book where I'll be able to go end to end, but it's getting, getting that source of information and what you're looking to learn. Or again, is like I also love reading self-help books. So where when you
Yeah,
find those action items, being able to take it, write it down, and instantly start implementing it into my day-to-day to help me, right? So I definitely get where you're coming from. And thank you for sharing that. I like that process because it's at least you understand it. If you love it, you're gonna listen to it or read it, and then if you're really into it and find the value, you're taking it and highlighting it. So that's a great process. I think that's a
yeah,
great way
no,
of really
absolutely.
digesting the information, right? Okay, so finally I'll ask you is in your career, what are you most proud of at this point?
Um, Gosh, that's a very good question. I
Mhm.
think I going back to your question about the things that I've failed and I've learned. I think I'm proud of actually about 2 weeks ago I was talking to my wife. We were having dinner and
Mhm.
we were talking about like what do you regret it anything in your career, right? In what you've done in the companies that you work for and the failures that I would say is like I have no regrets
Mm.
because I've learned so much. So I guess that would help me to answer the question is what are you most proud of? Is that what I'm saying is that I've failed,
Yeah.
but I've never gone stop there. Like
Yeah.
I guess is something that I could be proud of is something that I know that whatever I'm building is going to be a legacy.
Yeah.
Um, not only for my family, for my kiddos, but is I hope is also a legacy for our industry and for
Yeah.
whatever. So uh if something to be proud of, I think is just that from
Yeah.
the things that I've learned and that I've not given up for on all the things that I fail
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, I mean the resiliency, the amount of knowledge you've captured, it's amazing, and then being able to transfer that and teach people, that's awesome. And my final question to you would be,
Yes.
if you had a theme song for your life, what would that
Ah,
be?
gosh. I think there are so many. Gosh, you put me on the spot because there are songs that I like, but there's no one thing.
Mm,
Just quickly, you need to know about me
mm.
is I love EDM.
Oh wow, yeah,
I
nice.
love EDM.
Yeah,
That's kind of like my core, and
yeah,
it's so funny because my wife laughs about this, but I'm very
yeah,
gadget
yeah,
people person. So I have my digital goggles and I
yeah,
have my waterproof headphones, and I
yeah,
swim. And
yeah,
I tell her that is like this helps me to actually swim a lot, like
yeah,
have a better performance.
yeah.
But one song that I have there, and I was actually telling her today, is like there's a song, EDM song by
Mm.
Tiesto that is called Drifting.
Okay, yeah,
So
okay,
whoever likes EDM or
yeah.
whoever, if
I'm
if
adding
there's a theme song that I
Yeah,
would love, like is Drifting by
just
Tiesto.
I'm pretty sure I know that track, but yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well, Suriel, thank you so much for your time. Would definitely love to have another conversation with you again in the future. Thank you for all your knowledge and for coming on for today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Carl. This has been a great conversation. So looking forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.